Welcome back. Well, the World Health Organization is meeting today to see what can be done to contain a SARS-like virus which has infected hundreds of people in China. Airports around the world are stepping up health screenings and passengers arriving from Wuhan, China, the epicenter of the outbreak. Well, London's Imperial College estimates that 4,000 people are likely to be infected in Wuhan, and at least 17 people have now died in China. More than 500 are infected there, and there are fears that the coronavirus will spread during the busy Lunar New Year. Well, besides the US, cases have been reported in South Korea, Japan, and Thailand. The virus was first identified last month at a market selling seafood and live animals in the city of Wuhan. CNN's David Culver traveled to that market, which has since been shut down.
Behind the police tape, this normally crowded market in the central China city of Wuhan sits eerily desolate. This is ground zero for the illness sparking global unease.
So this is where authorities believe the source of the coronavirus is. It's the wildlife and seafood market. And you can perhaps see over there, it's cordoned off. You've got police at all the corners.
It is so sensitive that within minutes of us arriving and recording, security asked us to stop filming. There is an uneasiness felt throughout Wuhan. We experienced that as soon as we boarded the train from Beijing. Each car nearly full, most faces covered. Just about everyone traveling home for the Lunar New Year. Strict screening upon arrival. One by one, passengers step through a thermometer check to make sure they are not bringing a fever with them. Scenes like this playing out in transportation hubs across China.
The virus was being spread mainly through respiratory transmission and is likely to mutate, which will increase the risk of epidemics spreading. In addition, the Spring Festival travel rush saw a mass migration of people, and that has objectively increased the risk of epidemics spreading and the difficulties in taking effective preventative and control measures. We should always be on high alert and never take this lightly.
Behind me, this is one of a few hospitals here in the region that's dedicated to treating some of those who are either confirmed cases or suspected cases of the coronavirus. Out front, you've got a few staff members who we notice are all wearing masks. Some of them are even wearing protective gloves, just to prevent any potential exposure.
It's brought the normally festive holiday mood in Wuhan to a halt, and it's cut down this vendor's business.
This year, the pneumonia situation is getting serious, so there are not so many people coming here to buy goods.
She's from a city that's about 2 hours drive from Wuhan. She's got her mask nearby, and she admits she's worried. And so too is her daughter and other relatives.
They were asking me to go back home, but I can't leave with all my inventory here. I've already bought these goods. I have no choice, and I have to stay here and resign myself to my fate.
Other vendors more hopeful. This woman telling me she does not feel the need to wear a mask.
Maybe I am having a positive outlook. I have been checking online instructions on Baidu, like drinking more water or washing your hands more frequently. I think that should be fine.
The unknown's looming over a city with a rising death toll. Unclear what's next for Wuhan and the 11 million people who call it home. David Culver, CNN, Wuhan, China.
Well, CNN Chief Medical Correspondent Dr Sanjay Gupta joins me now to discuss all of this. Really good to get your perspective on this. So this virus is now in at least five countries, including the United States. 17 people dead, but I imagine the time since this broke out that more people would have died from the regular flu than this. Why is there so much concern?
That's a great point, and I think one that gets overlooked a lot. So far in the United States alone, you've had over 6,000 deaths. And millions of people that get the flu every year. I think there's two things here. One is like objective, and one is a more subjective. For the flu, we typically do have a vaccine. It's not, this year it's only 58% effective, but it's still a vaccine. There's some sense of there's something we can do about this. With this particular new coronavirus, there's no vaccine. We have no idea exactly how this virus is going to behave. We have no way of actually preventing it from infecting people. The other thing is, I think, Lynda, there's always this concern, is this going to be a very large pandemic? We've had large pandemics in 1919, again in 1969, 50 years later. There was a belief for a long time that another one would have happened in 2019, 50 years again. So the question always, I think, in the back of public health officials, is this starting to emerge as something that could turn into a very deadly worldwide pandemic. Not suggesting this is, but they're always looking for the clues here, and I think that's why the public health folks are paying so much attention.
And this particular virus seems so mysterious to begin with. At first, we were told that it was only transmitted from animals to humans. Right. Now it seems human-to-human transmission is happening.
It definitely does, and you know, there's most of the viruses that we talk about come from the animal world. Throughout history, there have been 7 of these types of viruses that have made the jump from animals to humans. Most of the time, it's not a big deal. They don't actually cause illness. People don't even know that they had the infection. Twice in the past, it ended up being a big deal. And that was SARS, and that was MERS. Same type of family of viruses here, and those obviously cause significant illness and significant deaths around the world. This is within that family of viruses, so the question is this going to start behaving that same way? We know it's human to human because healthcare workers have gotten sick. We know people who've never visited Wuhan have become ill. The only way that could happen is human-to-human transmission.
Right. So what's your advice? So many people travel, especially to parts around Asia.
Yeah.
What should people do?
Well, you know, it's interesting because going back to your first question, the flu is still a far more deadly thing.
Right?
And so what would I tell you for something that is far more deadly? First of all, would you even think about restricting family travel plans because of the flu? No. And yet with this, people are more concerned about it. But I would say the basics still apply here. The way that you would get this infection is the same way that you get the flu infection. So basic precautions, you know, lots of hand washing, staying away from sick people, not touching surfaces that might be contaminated. We touch our eyes, nose, and mouth several times throughout the day after we've touched surfaces. It's those basic precautions that apply. And it feels silly almost to say those things in the midst of a new emerging outbreak, but it still works, and it can greatly prevent the number of people who get infected.
And for people traveling around Asia, how effective are those masks? Are there specific masks that people should buy?
Yeah, I mean, and so I'm just hearing, in fact, in the province where Wuhan is located, they are going to start recommending people wear these masks out in public. That's a city of 11 million people. People always think of these small central Chinese cities as tiny. No, it's bigger than Manhattan, and there's a lot of human-to-human transmission going on. So in places like that, I think the masks can be effective, but I don't think we're at the point now where people need to widely start wearing them.
All right, Dr. Sanjay Gupta, as always, good to have your advice and your expertise on this. I know it sounds that way, but good to have you available for us. Thanks so much.
Thank you.
Well, CNN's Fareed Zakaria sat down in Davos with Hong Kong's Chief Executive Carrie Lam. Now, he asked her about the city's plan for dealing with the coronavirus threat, as well as the ongoing protests. Take a listen.
What can you tell us about the Wuhan virus? How worried should we be?
We have been putting ourselves on a very highly vigilant system because we learned from the past. I'm sure you still remember Hong Kong handling the SARS